Hello, flat earth researchers, debaters, and debunkers. Realizing that we don't live on the outside of a spinning globe in a heliocentric model is part of this realization that most of our lives are led through beliefs, things we can't actually physically see or experience, we can only imagine in our minds. I thought of an example of this today, where here in Thailand, wearing a helmet when you're riding a motorcycle is a law, and so is wearing a mask. Now, I'd say about 50% of motorcycle riders in this country don't bother with helmets. The law is occasionally enforced. If you get pulled over at a checkpoint, then you might have to pay a fine for not wearing a helmet, but you don't lose your license and things like that. But then every single person outside, in a car or on a motorbike, walking about, is wearing a face nappy because it's law. And so both of these things are laws, and you're supposed to follow these laws because they are sensible. I mean, I agree that wearing a helmet is a really sensible idea, and it should be compulsory, I suppose. But look how people are living their daily lives based on a belief and a fear that something that we can't see and have never seen and just had experts' word for that exists. And even if it does, it's something that we can easily overcome by ourselves with our own natural immunity. So there's nothing to be actually afraid of, nothing at all. But we are all being taught to live in fear. That's what most of us have been doing. Different types of fear, but that's what we've been doing for the past few years, based on belief and the word of politicians and their scientific advisors. Yet it's immediately obvious to you if you go out on the roads here, or any road anywhere, that you're putting yourself in a very precarious and dangerous situation, and you could end your life or someone else's life prematurely if you make a wrong move. You're dealing with speeding trucks and people turning all over the place where in unpredictable ways. You have to be on constant guard and vigilance, even when you're in a country where the road laws are very strict and everything's well marked and most people follow the rules. You still are dealing with an obviously dangerous situation, and the numbers of deaths that occur on a road are significant in any country. Here in Thailand, it numbers the thousands. And a lot of those happen at a very specific time of year during the Songkran holidays. So there's an obviousness, the world around us, it's telling us that it's dangerous, and we know to be careful, but we disregard that for the most part. As I said, if there's people that aren't wearing a helmet but will wear a face nappy, then they are, blatantly ignoring reality. What's really obvious, they're not afraid of the things that are really obvious right in front of them. It's not entering the consciousness. But these imaginary things that we're told to believe in become controllers of our conscious existence. So it's amazing, isn't it? You just apply that to everything we do, everything we think, everything we believe, every action, every decision we make is most likely based on a belief, because it's something that we think we should do because of some kind of intangible thought process. Of course, this is different to an emergency situation where you're in real danger and you just instinctively act. But for the most part, we don't act on what is blatantly obvious in front of us. It might be when we're dealing with people, interacting with people, and if you can read signs, if you can be open to receiving all the information that's being conveyed to you by a person when you're talking to them, the body language, the speech, and all these other things, then you kind of negotiate, and you can avoid conflict for the most part, unless someone is dead set on being confrontational. Then you have to, assess the situation as you would do with any other dangerous situation. But you see the point. We're just, everything we do is based on things we think we should do, rather than correctly reacting or not to a certain situation that's tangible. And this of course comes to the whole realization, and all of us that are so-called flat earthers, and we know that term doesn't mean someone who believes they live on a flying disc in space. All of us have been on lifelong journeys of exploration and seeking truth, basically seeking answers to our existence. And this kind of realization, or this ability to discern between reality and belief, is something we have to really practice and work hard at. So, and I'm sure this is how it is for most of you that would be labeled as flat earthers or truth seekers. It's a work in progress, isn't it? And you can only get there to this realization that is really only coming back down into our conscious reality, being aware of what's really going on around us, rather than our thoughts and being polluted by these filters of belief. Because, of course, from the moment we're born, as we go through our formative years, we are conditioned. We are brainwashed, as it were. It doesn't matter what culture you come from. Terence McKenna once said, "Culture is not your friend." He's absolutely right, because that can be the kind of a national culture, but it could also be a family culture. And so these things condition us. Our life journey conditions us. So, by the time we get to kind of start thinking independently, we've already been well conditioned. Yeah, it's been that way of thinking has been pushed aside, because we get so used to being told how things are. And to even recognize that in the first place is obviously a step that many people don't take. As a flat Earth channel, I get told to go back to school, go and read science books, do this, do that, anything but actually look at reality. Yeah. So we're all at different points on our personal journey. So sometimes we have to go through these things. We have to go through these stages of denial. Unfortunately, though that denial might last a lifetime. Personally, despite all the hate and all the turmoil that comes with certain realizations about who we are and what we are, or who we are not, I should say, because we don't really know who we are and why we're here. These are the burning questions that everyone has, right? It doesn't matter what you believe in. All of us are very interested and very curious about who we are. And surely that's what we're trying to do as we go through life. How many of us really feel that we know our place and know what we are and where we fit into all of this, really. Yeah, if you have kids, that's a defining moment in life, because then you certainly feel that your life has got a purpose now. I know that's how it felt for me. And of course, for a lot of people, it's a very frightening thing that we would run away from or avoid. And of course, I'm sure if you're a father or a mother, you will have been very full of fear as well, uh, about having a child and having that responsibility, and just wondering how the heck you're going to actually do this. How are you thinking? I can't even look after myself properly. I've got to look after kids now. But these are the things that happen, and we go with it and we get through, and all of a sudden your kids are grown up, and oh yeah, all the time we often hold on to beliefs and concepts, and we'll often try to uh, encourage our kids to go in similar ways. It's very difficult to imagine anything outside of our own boxes, and no matter how open-minded you might think you are. I'm just talking from a personal experience, but I know it's the same for a lot of us, because, as I said, it's an ongoing thing. You can say I'm open-minded, but you can't help certain reactions and certain instincts or feelings that come up or arise or take over your consciousness when certain things happen. Someone might say something and you feel offended, or you feel you've got to defend yourself. These are rooted in uh, your own culture, that during your upbringing you might have seen something or experienced something where you learned that you had to, stand up for yourself in a certain situation or not. It's everyone's leading a different path, but these things stay. And so recognizing the things as belief or cultural conditioning in ourselves is a challenge. Again, it's work. Just going through this mental process is work, and maybe it's the most important work any of us can do. If you want to talk about the purpose or why are we here, well, there's no doubt that whatever happens in our lives, we have these wild, crazy experiences. Good, bad, just, it's just a mishmash. But we're all very similar in certain ways. Now, I think I've heard it from a Buddhist monk that, I don't quite know this, but what I've heard is there are about 64, apparently, I think it's 64, ways of thinking. I suppose if you can imagine thought processes and the kind of the different branches that a thought process might take to arrive at certain decisions. Apparently, so we're like, in that sense, we are like a machine. Our brains operate in a certain way, or our minds operate in a certain way. And our thoughts will take us in certain directions. That doesn't mean it's predictable, but it's an awareness of this mental process that goes on in our minds as humans, or as conditioned beings in a human world environment. So when you're ready and you hear about flat Earth, if you're not ready, then you'll just fob it off and argue, and come up with all sorts of explanations and things that you've heard, that the flat earther has already gone through and studied and thought about, and seen that there are contradictions, and certain explanations just don't hold true, or they're just explanations that don't fit with reality. So, you really come to your senses. You come back down to Earth rather than, imaginary space things. And because where can we go? How far can we take this thought process of where we are? You can say, oh, we're on an Earth going around the sun in a solar system, and then we're in a galaxy, and then we're in a whatever, a universe, and that universe is expanding or it's endless, and there is nothing that we can do to so, what's the word? Conclude. There's nothing we can do to conclude or get answers to these questions about where does it end or what is infinity. It's just beyond our experience in this material world. So no one's got the answers. No one. Doesn't matter how good you are at mathematics or whatever explanations or stories or how much science you can do. There is a finite limit to our knowledge. Whereas something like the term wisdom might be more related to the heart and mind connection, where we gain wisdom through experience, and it's not something that we can necessarily put into words, and it's not something you can really write down in a book as a guide, because we end up living a life with more, how can I say, with going through heartfelt wisdom. Leading a life through heartfelt wisdom is more plain sailing than leading a life based on beliefs and thinking that there are certain ways you should behave. So there becomes this detachment from behavior, this recognition that we behave in certain ways. So it's the whole thing is about discerning between belief and reality, and understanding that there's a limit to the reality. We can't go beyond. We just can't. We can't go beyond the reality that we experience unless we go to this mind and wisdom, mind and heart connection for more of a kind of esoteric wisdom. So it's not really knowledge about what is out there physically. It's more knowledge about what is in terms of our being, our consciousness, our life experience. And so it's fascinating, isn't it? It is freedom. It is, you are, once you realize you're not stuck to the outside of a spinning ball because of gravity, you are free from this prison mind. You do feel this as a form of wisdom because it resonates with the heart, the mind, and our personal experience. When we do come back down to earth and we see and know that water is level, and we know that we are not moving. If we make the slightest change in orientation, we know about it. It's essential survival tool that's built into us. The same as an eye-level horizon. When we see the horizon at our eye level, and we go up and down, and we see other things in parallax, then this tells us our position. It tells us where we are on the earth. This is essential. It's essential for us to instinctively know what orientation we are, where we are, the height we are above the ground, and all anyone has is mathematical arguments, and mathematics is a language used to describe physics. But like any language, you can write a story like The Three Little Pigs, or you can write about facts. You're using the same language. And we have to understand that about mathematics. This is a language used to describe things, the physical world, but it can be used to describe an imaginary world and imaginary physics. And again, all you've got to do is look at the real Earth. Come back down to Earth, look across a horizon, and know that it is at your eye level, and you know that it's level, and that doesn't change. And so this doesn't mean that you jump into another belief. That's what we have to be aware of, isn't it? We understand that we've come out of a belief, and so you remain detached from belief. The process is becoming detached from a belief rather than jumping into another one. So of course, flat Earth is labelled as a belief, and there are certain images of discs and things that are associated with it. No. It's of course it's a level Earth, and wherever it is, wherever we are, is totally unknown. It's very difficult to accept. That's the most challenging part of it. And of course, we know that that's what, when people argue for the globe with their mathematical things, and oh, I saw a satellite, or whatever, I can navigate on a globe. You know that these are all just interpretations. Talk about circumference. Oh, Eratosthenes worked out the circumference of the Earth 2,000 years ago. Well, what's a circumference? A circumference usually, it's usually like this, isn't it? A circumference on a level surface. That's a circumference. Okay, you can imagine it as a sphere, but there's a word that doesn't mean the Earth is curved. It just means that there's a certain circle that's been worked out that kind of fits with the path of the sun. That's it. That's all we've got. The entire the entire globe concept is built upon certain definitions of words that can mean other things related to being on a level Earth. The maps, spherical geometry is used, but you can convert Cartesian coordinates on a grid, an XY grid, or with an X and a Y, with the positive and the negative, so you've got this square. You can convert Cartesian coordinates into spherical coordinates. And of course, you need a pole. You need a pole to do that so you take the center of the Cartesian coordinates, and that's your pole. But it's a sphere, so we need another pole. Well, you just create another mathematical pole with another graph and another set of mirrored coordinates. Yeah. So being able to navigate around the Earth using maps that represent a globe, or a globe projection with poles, is no different to going across it with Cartesian coordinates. It just depends on which coordinate system you're using. So of course, these things become political and they become consensus. The prime meridian is a political thing. It's not an accident that time starts at GMT. Yeah, it's all political. So it could be anywhere. But that's the thing, isn't it? If you have a sphere, you've got to divide it up. You've got to give it a top and a bottom, and you've got to give it a circumference in order to make it fit, or somehow be a projection of what is in reality a level Earth. Because a sphere doesn't have a top or a bottom. A sphere doesn't have a single circumference, does it? It can be anywhere. So in actual fact, the globe is with north and south poles and hemispheres and equator. These elements are necessary to convert from a level Earth into a spherical Earth. You've got to give it, and that's the thing. They say, oh, there's no up and down in space. Well, okay, but in reality, there is an up and there is a down. However it works is arbitrary. The fact is that we are on the ground in the medium of air because we are denser than the air. If we put ourselves in the medium of water, we're about the same density and we'll float there. We won't sink to the bottom. We won't sink to the surface. That's it. We can't. We can assume all sorts of forces and pulling and pushing and whatever. You can do that. You can model it. But the best we can do is describe it. And of course, again, you come back to mathematics. You can describe it. You have equations for mass. Well, those are based on our density in the medium of air, or the density of a cube of water in the medium of air. Put the cube of water in water, and there's no density anymore. There's no weight. There's no acceleration. Yeah. So it just depends. Of course, we use the environment that we're surrounded by, air, as our medium for starting our measurements. Yeah. That's all it is. You call it gravity if you want. Weight, gravity, density, relative density. Doesn't matter. It doesn't. You can use any word you like, but the connotations that word has for you or someone else may be completely different. You say gravity, and someone thinks it's some magical pulling force going towards the center of a spherical Earth, or they perceive level as being perpendicular to this line towards the center of a spherical Earth. It's just a model, and you can imagine it any way you like. It doesn't prove anything apart from the fact that when you look at the Earth in reality, it is horizontally level. Can't deny that. All you can do is come up with excuses as to why it isn't how it should be if we're on a globe that's spinning. Like, for example, the atmosphere sticking to the outside of the Earth. That's ridiculous. It's an excuse because it's evident that if we're on a spinning globe, we should be free of that spin once we detach from it. That's the assumption that goes with the pendulum, the Foucault's pendulum. You've got a free standing object that's suspended above the surface. It's not in contact with the surface, apparently, and the Earth is apparently rotating beneath it. So apply that assumption to everything else that's going through the air. Aircraft, balloons, whatever. Footballs. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. Just interrupted by my daughter there. Yeah, so okay, then in reality, you fly and the Earth does not spin beneath you. Oh, so that doesn't fit with the assumption that's made for the Foucault's pendulum, an assumption that was made before flight was possible. So there's a contradiction there in the belief or in the description of what's happening. And so then an excuse is made. Oh, well, the atmosphere is spinning with the Earth. Okay. So this somehow rectifies the fact that it doesn't matter which direction you fly in, you're never going to experience any going against or with the spin. You ask people, where does that end? And they can't answer you. There's no finite limit to the atmosphere spinning with the globe. But you look at reality, and we see wind in all directions at various heights. So what's sticking to the atmosphere? What's sticking to the Earth? If everything's moving across it, the air moves across the Earth like water moves across the Earth. Water's not sticking to the Earth, is it? It's flowing. Nothing is sticking to the Earth. And so the Earth isn't spinning, and we're not spinning with it. The Earth is, as we experience it, is a stationary, level surface. And everything above the surface moves around above it. Wind, water flows. That in itself is proof that we're not on a globe, because if you are on a globe, water wouldn't flow down these imaginary curves. So again, we look at reality, but for the most part, we go through our lives totally ignoring reality and totally ignoring the wisdom that we gain as we experience this reality. Will still favor beliefs, concepts, identities over reality. And that's the thing, isn't it? In the reality is we are not the uniforms that we wear, or the hats that we put on, or the behaviors that we put on in certain situations for certain formalities, or the habits that we pick up along the way. That's not the real you. The real you is somewhere else inside, intangible, but very, very real. But we have to work very, very hard to get back in touch with the real you, or the real I. And when we do that, we're not swayed. We're not caught up in these torrents of belief. Everything that's happening now is temporary. A lot of people are feeling pressured to do something. And a great many people are doing some very honourable things. They are fighting this war of something that's beyond land grabbing kind of wars. It's a war for maintaining one's freedom, I suppose, really. Yeah. But then that's the thing, isn't it? We're all fighting for freedom. And ultimately what we need to be free of is free of beliefs, and free of identity, and free of any forces that pull us towards extremes. Yeah, free of those influences. So we, it's you don't get, if you can imagine just a river, a fast flowing river, if you wade into it, you risk getting carried away from it. If it's going against you and you have to fight it to stay where you are, to not be carried away. This is or you can choose not to enter the river. Yeah. So that's been my personal goal, and I know that it's very similar for a lot of you out there, where we've realized that we're not on a spinning globe, and that is all just belief, and there's a huge number of people that are going to defend that belief for all the reasons that they have, and you've reached that stage where you're free of that belief. And so it goes on. We have to be free of these things that will influence us, or the people that wish to influence us with their ideas and their agendas. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to just do that. You will get attacked for being the real you, for not assuming an identity or following or being part of the group. You will be attacked as an outsider. The hen-pecked chicken, and there is always one in a group of hens. There will always be one that is literally hen-pecked, and in a way they're forced to become a loner. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. It's all of this is about discerning the difference between reality and belief. And if you look around, outwards and inwards, you'll see that most of us lead lives ruled by beliefs rather than reality. Thank you very much.